So this is the sculpture structure demo for the paper mache project in sculpture. And so we're going to start with just the structure part. I have a couple of things here that you might want. I gave you quite a bit of stuff when you picked up your kit. So in that kit, you had a cardboard bag, which you can use. It's not just a transport. You can also use it in this project. You might have extra cardboard that you didn't use for the Nevelson project. You might have extra wire that you could use to support some of your monster. And then I did give you quite a few pieces of newsprint. This is basically just non-printed newspaper. We need to use this both for the paper mache portion of this and the structure, but you don't have to use this. You can use newspaper or white paper or something as your base. I probably wouldn't use the paper bag. It's pretty stiff, and crumpling it up and trying to get it into the shape is not going to work. So for my monster, I have kind of a drawing, and so here's what my monster is going to look like. It's going to be kind of this like almost bird-like thing, and I can do a little bit of details on this. But so the first thing that I would want to do is I would probably want to make some hard structure for the bottom. So remember, this thing can't be bigger than 8 inches tall, which is pretty tall for a paper mache. If it's bigger than 8 inches, then you're going to have a lot of trouble paper macheing this in the time that we have left. So I cut a piece of cardboard out of the extra cardboard that I had so that I could use it as a bottom. This might be a little bit big, but we'll go with it. The other thing that you're probably going to want to use, if you have an old coat hanger that your family is willing to give up, you may want to add this in as legs, but I'll kind of do this as a speed video once we get going here so that you can see how I add legs to it. You could actually use the leftover wire that you didn't use for legs as well, just as long as it's sturdy enough on the inside of it to kind of hold stuff up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start crumpling paper, because what I want is I want to build up that kind of piece on top of this piece of cardboard here. So sometimes you just have to start putting masses of paper together. So the other thing that you're going to probably need is some kind of tape. So a lot of you said you didn't have tape, but you can probably, if you need some, you could probably buy some at the grocery store. You can use Scotch tape, you can use masking tape, you can use, painter's tape or duct tape or any kind of tape that you have. This is not going to work very well if you don't have some kind of tape to keep this together. Okay, so what I usually do is I take and I tape my paper to my structure, and this does not have to be, it does not have to look good. Okay, what you want to do is you want to just start, kind of putting pieces onto your project and building this up. Okay, so one of the things that you need to have on my image is I need to have long, skinny feet. Now, these may not be the total size of this because this seems a bit on the tall side once you go with this as the body. So what you would want to do is, because this doesn't need to be super beautiful because you're going to be putting paper mache over the top of it, it can be super super ugly. Now, I gave my little monster 2 toes. You might want to bring, you might want to give him 3 toes. I may want to do that later. And in fact, I think I'm going to, bend this almost down so that I have just a shorter leg. I think this is a bit on the tall side. Just because we don't want this bigger than 8 inches tall because it's too big. Now, one of the things that you're going to want to consider is how this thing stands. So you need to make sure that it can stand. So if you're going to use wire, you might want to use a third, like almost a tripod foot. So something that comes off here. And I may do that on mine just to fix this a little bit. But once you have the foot, then you're going to probably put it on to the front in some way. So you could cut a hole in this and stick it up in here and tape it, or you can just bend wire because it's super easy to bend. And then you just want to tape it on. Okay, so we'll put a couple of pieces of tape. You're gonna be paper macheing over the top of it, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so there's 1 foot. And it's got to stand up as a structure before you start paper macheing it. I mean, it's going to get a lot more sturdy when you do that, but you want it to kind of stand up on its own, at least somewhat, if you're going to do, kind of wire feet on the bottom. Now, that's why having a hanger is going to be a little bit easier to do. Or use, but if you don't have one, or if you don't have the means to cut this, because this is pretty stiff, then I would just use the wire that you have left out of your kit. You should have plenty to work on this project with, okay? Okay, so one of the things you might have to do is you might have to put some cardboard on the bottom of the feet. So I'm just going to cut a couple of quick triangles just to give this a little bit of sturdiness. I'm going to cut them both the same. Okay, and then I'm probably, yeah, I would put your wire on the top. Okay, so there is my basic shape. You can come back in here and you could probably, shape this a little bit more with tape. But there's my basic shape and it stands on its own. I just had to put a little bit of cardboard on the feet, which is totally fine. Now, this looks really ugly right now because it's just a structure. But on the next video, we're going to start doing paper mache, and we're going to start making this thing look a little bit more like a monster. Okay?